everybody, and welcome to Manny's Makings. Today we're going to do part 2 of the rosette. I'm going to show you how to turn a small rosette into something that you can hang a pendant or a larger pair of earrings, and we're going to add some wire to it today. So last night I made a couple of little ones, and I just wanted to show you. This one's a variation on the same thing. It's just the same starting points and it goes around, and it's a little complicated to explain, but it's a variation. I just wanted to show you that you don't have to just do the stars. You can do a pinwheel, you could do all kinds of crazy stuff. If I kept going with this, eventually they would meet back with each other, so this stripe would get longer and longer and longer. So these are pretty small. They're about an inch. If you can see, they're just slightly smaller than the ones that, it's the same size as the one I've previously made. So this one here is similar to the pattern. Let's see if I can get it to focus. There we go. This is similar to the pattern that I did on the video previously. The only difference is I only did the beginning row, and then I started my colors on the second row, and I didn't do an outline color. I just did the one color, closed it off, and when I got to the place where I had 5 beads across between the two colors, I added a color, and I just alternated them, red, blue, red, blue. So I did a different background versus, the background I had on the other one, but this one's all done and ready to go and to be made into a pendant. So we're going to use this. Now, under the show more button is always the list of supplies that you're going to need. The 3 bead colors that I used is the same as the previous video for this one. And just in case you're curious, the 3 bead colors for this one are light beige, opaque, Toho, light beige, opaque, luster, Toho round seed beads. And this has the turquoise semi-glazed Toho round seed beads and the orange semi-glazed Toho round seed beads. So those are the 3 bead colors that I used in this one, if you like the color combination. But we're going to play with this one. No, actually we're going to play with this one because I have the beads out for this one. So what you need to do is you're going to need 18 or 20 gauge wire. I'm using 18 because that's what I have. And you're going to need some weaving wire. This is 26 gauge. And these are both in the titanium colorway from Para Wire. I have lots of that colorway floating around. So yeah, this was the bigger version we made in the previous video, just so you know. So it's very similar to this one. It's just, this is a baby version. A lot less rows, as you can see. Yeah, definitely a lot less rows. So it's just because I didn't do the extra outline and I started a row earlier, it makes it much smaller. As you can see, way big difference. This uses a wingspan and a bit. This uses like 3 full wingspans of thread, just so you know. So you can make them all kinds of different sizes, as you can see. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to find something in my house that's similar in diameter. So what I found was, this is actually just a thing, it's a spray scent for so things don't smell, and this is very similar in size. So find something. This is glass, which is great. If you have a ring mandrel that goes big enough, you could use that. You could use a big fat marker. This would be pretty big. It's about 1 inch in diameter. You could use a bobbin if they're big enough. Whatever you can find that you're big enough to bend your wire around. Now, depending on the size of the piece that you're covering, depends on how much wire you need. So I'm not going to give you specific amounts of wire. I'm just going to take some wire off and go for it. So I have my wire straighteners. I'm just going to straighten a piece of wire. Straightening a piece of wire. There we go. Just so it doesn't have any bad kinks or bumps in it anywhere. And then I'm just going to take my bottle and I'm going to wrap it around my bottle. And I've left it on the coil so I don't have to waste any more than necessary. So you want to make it match up. I know it's hard to see with that line, but it's matching up. And I want it to overlap some so that I'll cut some off, but I'm going to make a loop at the top. So I'm just making it overlap about equal amounts on either side. It doesn't really matter it's relevant. Okay, so I have my piece, and as you can see, when I let it go, even though this is dead soft, it does tend to spring up a little bit. And when you look at it on this, it's a little too big, but when we fasten it to it, it will make it smaller. So the first thing I need to do is to create a place that's going to go up. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to use I've got my thread and everything up to do the dangles, to do my fringe. I'm just going to take one of these sides and leave myself, this is a good fingertip, so about an inch. I always do this. I put my ruler away because I knock it off all the time. So yeah, a good inch. So my fingertip is an inch. So find something around an inch, and I'm just going to take it and bring it up. And this is going to eventually end up being this curl right here. That's what it's going to eventually end up being. So, okay. So that gives you a place to start this. And I'm just going to bring this to the back. And I'm just bringing this, making this a little bit smaller, trying to get a little closer. Okay, so you need to take a piece of weaving wire. I have a scrap here of the titanium, and it is 12 inches, 13 inches. It's not very big. I should be able to get away with it. Hopefully, we'll find out soon enough. So I'm going to use later for my fringe the KO beading thread. So I think I have everything that I need. And I'm just going to move these beads out of the way a little bit so I don't smack them around and knock them off my desk. So they end up in their favorite habitat, the floor. Other than putting a sock over your vacuum or a nylon over your vacuum, anybody got any good ideas on how to get beads off the floor? I'd love it to know. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be sticking the wire through the beads. So bonus 2 points. Okay, so if you see, they can actually go into the beads, and that's why I didn't have you do a bunch of thread near the end, because you're actually going to be putting the wire into the beads. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Come on, baby. There we go. So the wire will fit right into the beads. See, it's right in the beads. So just know that that's what I'm explaining. I'm explaining putting the wire through the beads. You can do this in any amount that you want. You can go through 4 or 3 or whatever. I'm going to probably go through 4. We'll see. So what I tend to do is I start, let's put it through 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm putting it through 4 beads. So this is what I have. So I have it through 4 beads, and I just have enough to get me, I'm just going to bend this up so it gives me something to hold on to. And I'm going to put this so this faces sort of, I'm going to hang on to it sort of semi-wrapped around. If I can get it to wrap around this other side. I'm just holding it there because this is all going to cinch in. As I pull it, this is going to cinch in, and because it's going to cinch in, it's going to be a problem. So if I secure it right now. So I'm going to take my first one and I'm going to bend it straight up. So I'm going to bend it straight up. This is behind, this is in front. We're going to be wrapping around this front wire here. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to wrap it around and bring it through the hole. Because right now I still have a hole. And I'm going to bring it through and pull straight up. Okay, and that's going to give me one little hitch on the side of wire around it. Okay, and then I'm going to take it, and this is where it gets a little more difficult. Sometimes it's easier from the back side, so I'm going to put it back through. Come on. There we go. So what I want to do is I want to keep the whole weaving wire as nice as possible. That's why I'm showing you a little bit wider shot. And right where the wire comes out of that bead, I want to put it in the next bead beside it. So I'm taking and I'm putting my end of my wire through, and I'm manipulating my beads with my thumb, You can move your beads around a little bit on the end. And it's not wanting to go through, so I'm going to turn it around the other way. It will go through. And I've done enough of these to know. There we go, it's going through. 1, 2, 3. Come on, there we go, 4. And make it come back out again. So when you make it come back out again, make it come back out to the front. So let's hold this back where I had it before. Put this back around there. And I'm going to pull. Now, when I'm pulling, it's a weird loop. See the loop that comes straight up? And that was the loop that we made before when it came around. I'm gonna hold this whole thing in my fingers, and I'm gonna pull. I'm pulling really hard. Like, I want you to see that I'm grabbing that wire and pulling really good and hard. And what it does is it makes the wrap around here. See? And it moves me 4 beads away. Rinse and repeat. So I smooth my wire as I go, making sure the end is pretty smooth. And if you have to, you can cut the end of your wire if it gets really badly kinky, but usually with a 26 gauge dead soft, it's pretty easy and pretty malleable to be able to take it. Let me turn this around again, to take it and straighten it out. So I got 4 more beads. So I've gone through 4 more. See? 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring it around the front. And I'm gonna I'm holding right where all the stuff is because I don't want it to pull my beads apart. And I've got my second one on. So I have 1 here and 1 here now. And I'm going to work on my third one. So you get the idea. So I'm going to just keep doing this all the way around till I get to the other side, and then I will show you what to do after that. Okay, so I've gotten the wire put around, and I sort of, molded it a little bit. If you watch the super high speed, you could slow that down if you wanted to sort of see what I did. So I have this to the back, and then I have the one that's standing up to the front, and I have my 2 weaving wires meet in the middle in the same place. And that just happened to be the way that it is. It's, fluky, I guess. It depends on, I have 40 beads because that's how many rows I ended up doing. So now I'm going to take this and wrap it around on the one side on the top wire 1 more time and 1 more. So I'm going to do 2 wraps on this side, and I'm avoiding this wire that's on the other side. And I'm putting it to what would be the one side of this top wire once we get it secured. So there's the one, and the other one, I'm going to put it on this top wire. So I'm going to bring it around underneath, and I'm going to put it through. As you see, you don't need a big long piece. And that was 12 inches, and I still have probably 4 inches left. So it doesn't take a lot of wire. And if you're needing to make sure it's good and tight, just give it a pull with your pliers. And bring it around. Make sure they're beside each other and bring it through. So this is going to be the back side of my work. Now, I know that some of you are probably, when you're pulling, you're worried that your beads are going to fall apart. They're not. You have got 2 or 3 passes of thread. The outside edge would have 2 passes of thread. Most of the inside would have 3 passes of thread through it. So you have quite a bit of thread going through the piece. And at this point you can still, I don't know if you can see, I can actually move this on the wire. Because of the one on one side and one on the other, I can only go so far. So I'm going to just move this out of the way. I'm going to trim these, but I'm just going to move them out of the way because I need to now bend this. So this piece is going to wrap around the base of this piece. And one of the things that you have to remember is when you're wrapping around another wire, it can tend to pull this wire in. So, I'm giving myself a little extra space. If you look, it's not right against. I'm giving myself a little extra space. and I'm going to start the bend. And the reason I'm starting it with my pliers in the space is because I don't want to, when I wrap it around, to pull in. So that's what I have on the top. There we go. So that's what I have on the top. My 2 weaving wires are here. It's all attached. It's like a big drum head. It's kind of cool. So now I need to just cut off the excess wire. So I'm going to cut off the excess wire just about here. It doesn't have to be perfect, because all you're doing is you're going to take your pliers and you're going to bring this around and wrap it around that piece. So I'm pulling this out to sort of stretch the drum head. I could take a little bit more off, and that's what you can do. You can just take a little bit, take a little bit. You don't want to take too much, because then you got to sort of start again. There we go. Come on, get in there. There, I got it tucked in nice and tight. So now it's tucked in nice and tight. I've got this to one side, this to the other side. Do the last movement of the stuff on here to make sure it's balanced where I want it to be. And now I need to cut these wires off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut them off. They both come out of the same bead center, but because I've wrapped them around, they're now coming out on the back side of this top wire on either side. So I'm going to cut this one off, flat side down, and I'm cutting them to the back. And take this one around so it's where it's supposed to be. Cut that one off. So I still have a scrap of wire. And I'm just going to make sure that everything's tucked in nice and tight. That I'm not going to have anything, I'm rubbing my finger on it, that I'm going to catch on. So I have a lollipop. Not cute. So I'm sure that lots of you are going, oh, I could do this with it. Oh, I could do that with it. So that's what I want you to do. So this becomes my front. And what I tend to do is I tend to bend this away from, this is where it closes on the back. This is where it closes on the back. So I tend to bend this that way, away from where it closes on the back. And I leave myself 1 finger width. I sort of, this width. So I leave myself 1 finger width, not length or not height, but width, the fat part of my finger. In my case, that ends up being basically just a little over a centimeter, or just a little less than a ½ inch. And again, this one you can err on the side of caution if you want. I'm cutting it flat flush to the finished work. So I had 2 little tiny pieces of scrap wire that I ended up not using, which is just fine by me. I can handle that little bit of waste. This is literally the waste that I have, very little. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers now. And if you're watching this and you're wondering, how can I make this, or how can I make the other one, go watch the first video. You need to, and you'll see a little pop-up in the window. So I start with a bigger size than I need when I'm turning this, because I can always make it smaller. And then I just bring it in and bring it in. So it ends up being small. So as you notice, it's front facing. There, I want this closed right off. It's front facing. You can leave it front facing and turn it into an earring. Or you can change the facing of it by literally grabbing a hold of it and twisting it 90 degrees. So now I have a hole here that's a fairly good size. It'll probably fit a 1mm leather, or I can attach some chain to it, or some thin nylon cord, or it can be worked into a braided piece, whatever. So as you can see, it's kind of cool. That's the size of it. I have that's on my wrist, so you have an idea. It's 1 inch. And if you're worried about the space here, you can bring this in a little bit, make this smaller. I don't worry about it. I think it looks great the way it is. All right, so now we're on to the beading portion. Okay, so I have my KO that I used in my previous project when I did this and when I did the big one here. I used KO, so I love the way this feels. It's like wobbly fabric. I hope you guys are all having a good morning this morning. This video should be out at 9 a.m. So, okay. Just moving any little scraps out of the way so I don't knock anything. My favorite habit is to knock stuff. So you need to figure out where you want your I'm going to show you two examples, where you want your fringe. So this one I did from this tip to this tip basically. So I made sure that when I did this, that this was centered at the top and this is centered at the bottom. So I put them across here. On this one, I did it slightly differently and it didn't center it the same way. And this was actually my first one. I tend to do things in like black and white and simple no colors when I'm sort of figuring things out. So it's sort of balanced pretty close here, and there's still a little slight movement that I could take it and move it around. It's very slight, like 1/16 of an inch, if that. So if you're off just a millimeter. And then I just did a straight line of the dark black and then 3 on either side. So this was 4 on either side and the 3 in the center and 4 on that side. So it's 4, 3, 4. So this is a little wider and shorter. This is longer and skinnier. So you need to figure out what fringe. You could put fringe on it all the way from the top and make it, come down in a V if you wanted. You could do just a couple of dangles from here. You could do fringe from here to here. Whatever floats your boat. Okay, so I need to start my thread somewhere. And the easiest place to start my thread, again, is in my beads. And you're going to be really surprised. But I can actually stick, I'm just going to show you, I'm going to stick my needle in the beads with the wire. And I'm using a size 12 needle at this point now. And that's only because I know I'm going to probably have to go through here. Come on, get out. There we go. So you can see I just took my needle through those beads with the wire. So that's on the end where all the wire is coming through. Every bead on the end has wire in it on the outside row. So you can do that. I'm just letting you know. So if you've used normal size thread, if you haven't gone too crazy with your thread sizes, I'm going to just move these out of the way so the focus is less of a problem. Okay, so I'm just going to start my thread. I'm thinking I'm going to run the fringe between here and here. And I literally do this. This is how I do it. I look at it and go, what do I think? So this is my top. This is bring down my center. So this is my center bottom. And I have this little wire that wraps around here and the wire that wraps around here. And I'm going to run my fringe between the two. So I have to aim to end up with my needle somewhere around this vicinity once I get it started in here. So I'm just going to get it started. Just going to put it in wherever I want. And I'm just pushing up a little bit from the back. I'm just starting my thread, just like you would in any other bead weaving endeavor, like I showed you when you start your thread and end your thread. So I'm just taking it back and forth. I might even take it back through here. Put one more this time. So now it's actually already secure. It's not going anywhere because I've wrapped itself around itself. I'm just making sure I don't cross over in front of any of my beads when I'm doing this. There we go. And I should be able to actually just go like this. That's the center. So I actually need to come that way more. Okay, I'm going to go back up through there. All I'm doing is working I want to work my way to one end or the other end. It doesn't matter which end I work my way to. So my thread is now secure, and this is going to be used for my fringe. And you probably already, if you have done fringe before or have seen my other videos with fringe in it, I did one recently with the fringed earrings. And I'm going to wiggle my needle around that wire if I can. Doesn't want to go that way, so we'll go this way. There we go. That's fine. It's close enough. Okay, it's not exactly where it needs to be, but it's close enough. We can slide it over as we go. So now I'm going to take my needle and put it, I'm going right here between the two, and I'm going to bring it around, and I'm going to do a 1/2 inch knot. And my first fringe is going to hang right here. Okay, so now I'm ready for my fringe. So let's just cut off this extra thread. And believe it or not, my flush cutters are so good that they actually will cut thread, which is like amazing. Okay, so now we need to figure out what we want to do for a fringe. Do we want this to be graphic? Do we want this to be swirly? Do I want it to come down like a point? Do I want it to flare out at the sides? Do I want it to be longer on the outside and shorter in the center so it goes like a little fishtail? What do I want? So that's your next question to yourself. I'm going to show you sort of a basic. We'll just do, let's see. Let's do a bit of a curve on the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to probably get in, I can get in 1, 2, 3, 4 in the middle, 5, 6, 7. So I get about 7 strands, maybe 8. Okay, so I'm going to start with the lightest color first, and I'm just going to decide how many beads I want, how long I want my fringe to be. So I'm just picking up some white beads off to the side here. So I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The other thing you could do is a looped fringe. So you could, just do colors, do the other colors on the bottom, do these colors back up, and then loop it around. You don't have to do the coming back up piece. So let's see how long that makes that. That makes that long. Definitely need more than that. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just loading up my needle. So I have 4 of the, so I call it terracotta, but it's orange semi-glazed. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 of the orange again. And then we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because of the white. So I have 4, 4, 4, 5. And this was 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So it's 15, 4, 4, 4, 5. Okay, that's kind of important. And that makes my fringe that long. And I like that. So now I'm going to miss the bead here. And I'm going to work my needle back up just like any fringing as far as I can. I haven't pulled all my thread through, I just pulled some of it through. Okay, so now I have my thread through here. And in this case, because I want to move this over to make more fringes, I'm going to actually bring my needle up from the back side again, right beside the wire on this side. So that makes this outside fringe sit right at that wire, and then I can put the fringes in between. So I'm going to pull, and it's pulling stuff up. But as you can see, it's not pretty. There's still lots of thread. So again, my trick, hold on to the bottom bead, pull with your thread, and it tightens up perfectly. So there's my first fringe. Woohoo! Now, I can do this backwards or forwards, any way that I like. That's my choice, how I want to do this. Now what I want to do is take my needle back underneath, and I'm going to make another half-hitch knot. Okay, so now I'm ready for my next fringe. And just check to see your tension's good, that you haven't in the meantime messed up your tension on that. So I'm actually going to take this and flip it over. Doesn't matter whether I work, I just like to work upwards from myself, and I'm doing the raise the tail feather so that it keeps this tension good on this one, and I'm not going to by accident end up pulling this too tight. Time to do it again, but this time I'm going to do 16 of the white beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, and 16. And then I have the orange, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 orange, 1, 2, move them down my needle, I'm running out of needle space, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, there's two things to consider in this process. Normally when I'm doing a fringe and I want things to stagger nicely, I will go 3 beads more. But this is also on a curve, so it's going to lower it by about a half a bead each time based on the curve of the round. So when you're doing a pattern, if you want something to go straight across, you're actually going to have to decrease the beads so that it will do what you want it to do. Or if you did all the same beads, there would be an ever so slight little curve would mimic the bottom of the wire. So just know that. So I just added one more just to bring it down just a little bit. And I'm bringing my needle through. And as you know, my pattern is, if you haven't watched my other fringe where I made fringe on a set of earrings, I hold on to the thread while I bring my needle through, and I can do this either on my when it's on my hand or whether it's on the mat. So, and you can see there's lots of thread in between, that's fine. I'm going to take this and wrap it around the back, and I'm going to pull, just sort of holding my beads there a little bit and pulling my thread. And I'm going to check to see for tension. How are we for tension? Hold on to the bottom, my bottom bead with my nail, and I'm going to pull up. Ta-da! I don't like the way that's sitting, so I'm just fussing to make sure it's sitting where I want it to sit and exactly how I want it to sit. So there's 2. Take my thread, move forward on this wire. I'm going to bring my needle up from the back, make sure it goes through the loop, and then I'm going to create another half hitch. And I'm sort of placing the half hitches where I want to create the next fringe. Okay, I'll make sure that that's got enough movement. I'm good. Okay, so let's do the next one. So we're going to do 17. So I'm not going to bore you. So the next one I'm going to do 17. And when I get to right here, so I have to do one more, and then I'm going to be doing the 3 middle ones. When I get to the 3 middle ones, I'm going to make them all 18. So they will actually be flat across the middle. So they'll be flat across the middle, and then they're going to come back up. Instead of having the V, it'll have the side that'll slope, it'll be flat, and then it'll slope back up. So like a little smirk rather than a smiley face. Not a cheesy grin, it's just a little grin. Okay, so I'm going to continue to put these on, and I'm going to just do the same thing until I get to the end, and then I'll show you how to finish off the thread. Okay, so you can see I have done my fringe between the two spaces that I wanted to do it. I like it. This one could almost, you know, handle more fringe, but I'm actually thinking that I'm going to do some brick stitch around the outside. So this is one of those things in you're designing something. You do the first piece. I really love it's not a sharp V, it's a gentle curve. And that's because of these three that are actually the same. The curve happens because of the slight curve in the actual piece. So rather than having a sharp V, I have this nice gentle slope, you know, smiley facey, smirky thing. So I still have a fair amount of thread. I've done a half hitch like I did all the rest. And normally if you want to finish at this stage, you just take your bead weaving wire thread back up through the beads, work it way until it's secure, and then you're finished and you put it on your cord. If you want to do the brick stitching, and I'm thinking I want to do it in the cream, so I'm not sure if I want to picot or if I want to, and normally I don't brick stitch this direction, so I'm going to flip this. Again, one of the brick stitch, this fringe, it's all can be moved to one side or the other side, one side or another side. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same. And yes, you can see thread. I want you to see that. Come on, focus for me. There. You can see thread on the bottom, but because the beads are cream, you actually, nobody looks at it that close. That was literally, your nose would be touching the pendant to see it that close. Well, the fringe. So I'm going to brick stitch around the outside. I think I may do it with the picot edge. So I'm coming up from that side. So let me move my needle to this side because I tend to work best this way. So I'm just going to pick up 3 beads. And when you normally start a brick stitch, you only pick up 2, but I'm going to do a picot edge, so I'm doing 3. So I'm bringing my needle back through and around, and I'm going to come up just this last bead here, and I'm going to pull them tight. So I have this little bump I'm making, and then I'm just going to pick up 2 from now on. The upper bump and the lower bump, and this is just a spacing issue at this point. So I'm just bringing my needle back up and under. If I don't like it, I can take it out. So that's literally how I work designs out. I just go, well, that would work, and I like that. I don't like that. So what I'm trying to teach you is tools for your toolbox. So depending on how, I just want to show you something. If I pull this out farther away, the bead doesn't stand up as much. If I want the bead to stand up more, I have to squish it in closer. So it depends on how you space these, how much you have this edging. So when I look from this side, I like it sticking out. So just going to make sure that one's sticking out. Good. Pull these over. Good. Okay. It gives it more of a, I'm going to say Tex Mex feel. It's kind of Southwest bit of a feel, and because this is not a traditional per se pattern by any means, you can have some fun. We have room to play. So I'm literally just going to do this all the way around, and I'm going to come back when I'm done. I'm just going to end off my thread and I'll be all done. So this is easy to convert. The hard part was making the actual squares, 2 beads, not 3, silly. The actual square stitch piece in the center, that took the longest. Now these smaller ones that I made, where the big one took a couple of hours total, approximately. The smaller ones take about an hour, 15 minutes at my speed. So just know that, you know. So I want to show you that's what that's going to look like. And I like that. That is what it needed. And it's also putting thread on the outside, but this piece is already fastened. It's a finished piece. And so I'm just adding embellishments and things that I like that make it look really beautiful. I love that. As a pendant, I would wear that in a heartbeat. I would put this rusty color, it says orange, but it's like a burnt orange, like a really dark burnt orange, almost like a deep dark rust color. I would put that rust color, I know that I probably have some leather cord that's very similar to that. I would put a light leather, probably a 1mm leather cord through that, and I would be very happy to wear that. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so I've worked my way all the way around, and then I went around this piece here, and then I came back up through here, back down, back up, back down through here, and then I put it to the back, so that's where it is. So I'll show you a little closer up. So I did the last one here, okay, brought it around like I normally do, come up through the bead, then I went back down, and then I came around the wire again, back up, back through these three, back down, back up this through these three, and you see there's a double string there, and I brought it around to the back, and that's where I am right now, is on the back side of that. So I carried the beading across the top here in the center. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. This is fine. And now I'm going to take it and bring it into the beads. Remember that last row has wire in it. So trying to get the beads to separate out a little bit so that you can only go through 1 or 2 instead of 4 is a little harder, but just wiggling my needle. Let's see if I can figure out a way to get it in there. There's, I got it in to 1 bead. I got it into 1 bead. There we go. So it's in 1 bead. See? Right where the wire, that wire's running through there still, so I try not to catch the edge. There we go. So now I'm just going to take and weave my wire away. For those of you who like to see how this is done, this is how it's done. I'm just going back and forth. Overlock it, which means I'm going to come back down the way I was just coming up and then back up again. And I'm towards the center here. And we'll call it a day. Okay, so that is now functioning pendant. Isn't that lovely? I'm not sure if I would have probably been happier with just the single, not the picot edge. That's picot edge. Just so you know, the skills that I'm teaching you, like this picot edge is the same edge that I do when I do bead embroidery. This picot edge is the same edge I do when I do brick stitch around the outside of a form. This is a picot edge. If you learn how to do a picot edge, you can put the picot edge on anything you like. Picot edge is the same. It's just a matter of, instead of going around a wire, you might be going through a bead, or you might be going through a thread bridge, or you might be going into some leather, or you might, so just so you know, there's options of what you do. So this is the one we made today. My one leg's being silly. This is a simpler version, and this is a black and white version. Of course, my tassels, they do hang nice when they're hanging on your neck. They just hang fine. But when you're trying to lay them down flat, they always want to flip around on each other. See? There we go. So there's 3 different versions of adding fringe and adding the wire. This one is a little bit more rounded on the top, and I still may fiddle with that with my pliers a little bit, trying to bring it down to less of a point. I think I'd be happier with it if it was a little less pointed. So, but that's lovely beaded fringed pendants made with your square stitch rosette. So I hope you learned something today, and I want to thank you again for coming and being with me today at Manny's Makings. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And wait on Wednesday next week. We're going to use this in a larger version, and I'm going to show you how to put it on leather and make it into a barrette for your hair. So sort of the more traditional rosette barrette. It's not, instead of bead embroidering it on, you can do it this way as well. So look forward to seeing you again next week, and take care and keep on making from Annie's Makings. Bye.